The night the little girl appeared at Carrigan Will's door, the rain was falling so hard it sounded like gravel hitting the roof. Carrigan had just put his daughter, Hargis, to bed. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then came the knock. Not loud, not desperate, just 3 slow taps. Carrigan opened the door and saw a small girl standing alone on his porch. Her clothes were wet, her hands were shaking. She looked no older than 6. "I think I'm lost," she whispered. Carrigan looked down the empty street. No car, no parents, nothing but rain and darkness. So he did the only thing his heart would allow. He brought the child inside. But the next morning, a black SUV rolled into his driveway, and everything Carrigan thought he knew about that little girl suddenly changed. Before we go deeper into this case, take a second and hit the subscribe button. Give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel, because what happened next, no one in that quiet neighborhood expected. Carrigan Wills was used to quiet mornings. They usually began before the sun came up. His alarm rang at 5:30 every day, not because he liked early mornings, but because life left him no choice. Carrigan was a single dad raising his daughter, Hargis Wills, on his own. The small 2-bedroom house they lived in had peeling paint and an old porch that creaked every time someone stepped on it. But to Hargis, it was home. Carrigan worked long shifts at a small grocery store on the edge of town. The manager, Edna Dotz, ran the place like a clock. She expected everyone on time, no excuses. Carrigan never complained. He stacked shelves, cleaned spills, carried heavy boxes, anything that paid the bills. Still, money was always tight. Some weeks he skipped meals so Hargis could have what she needed. But Hargis never knew that part. To her, her father was the strongest man in the world. Every night, Carrigan read her a story before bed. Sometimes his voice was so tired it faded into a whisper, but Hargis always listened with wide eyes. "You're the best dad ever," she told him once. Carrigan smiled that night, then turned away so she wouldn't see the tears in his eyes. Across the street lived an older woman named Flossie Doyle. Flossie had watched Carrigan raise Hargis since she was a baby. She noticed things others didn't, like how Carrigan fixed broken toys instead of buying new ones, or how he carried 2 grocery bags into the house but never brought one out for himself. Sometimes Flossie would bake cookies and leave them at their door. She never said it out loud, but she knew Carrigan was doing his best. One afternoon, while Carrigan worked a late shift, Hargis sat at the kitchen table coloring. Flossie stopped by with a small pie. "You two are holding up okay?" she asked gently. Carrigan nodded. "We manage." Flossie looked at him for a moment. "You're a good father, Carrigan." He shrugged. "Just trying to keep the lights on." Later that night, Carrigan tucked Hargis into bed. The rain had already started outside, soft at first, then heavier. Hargis looked up at him. "Dad." "Yeah? Do you think people ever get lost in the rain?" Carrigan thought about the question. "Sometimes," he said softly, "but someone always finds them." Hargis smiled. Carrigan turned off the light and walked toward the living room. The house settled into silence. Rain tapped the windows. The clock ticked slowly on the wall. Carrigan sat down on the old couch and closed his eyes for a moment. That's when the knock came. 3 soft taps on the door. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one, and I'm curious, if you were Carrigan in that moment, hearing a knock this late during a storm, would you open the door? Because Carrigan did. and standing there was a child who didn't belong to anyone in that neighborhood. Carrigan opened the door slowly. The wind pushed rain into the hallway, and there she stood, a tiny girl with dark hair pressed against her cheeks. Her shoes were soaked, her arms wrapped around herself as she shivered. Carrigan crouched down. "Hey there," he said gently. "Where are your parents?" The girl shook her head. "I can't find them." Carrigan looked down the street again, still empty. He hesitated. 1,000 thoughts ran through his mind, but one thing was clear. He couldn't leave a child outside in a storm. "Come inside," he said softly. The girl stepped into the house. Hargis appeared at the hallway door, rubbing her eyes. "Dad?" Carrigan turned. "It's okay. Go back to bed." But Hargis looked at the girl. "Hi." The girl whispered back, "Hi." Carrigan wrapped a blanket around the stranger and sat her at the kitchen table. "What's your name?" "Marie," she said. "Marie Filion." Carrigan poured her a warm cup of milk. "Do you remember where you live?" Marie shook her head again. Her eyes were wide with fear. Hargis quietly pulled a chair beside her. "You can sit with me," she said. Marie gave a tiny smile. Carrigan picked up the phone. He tried the local police line first, but the storm had knocked out part of the signal. The call wouldn't connect. He tried again. Still nothing. Carrigan looked at the clock. Almost midnight. He sighed. "Okay," he said gently. "You can stay here tonight." Marie nodded slowly. Soon both girls were asleep in Hargis's room. Carrigan stayed awake most of the night. Something about the situation felt strange. The next morning, the storm had cleared. Sunlight slipped through the kitchen window. Carrigan turned on the television while making breakfast. A breaking news alert appeared. A woman's voice spoke urgently. "A citywide search is underway for a missing child identified as Marie Filion." Carrigan froze. The screen showed Marie's picture. Standing beside the reporter was a woman with sharp eyes and a pale face. Her name appeared on the screen, Bessie Filion. The broadcast continued. "Authorities are asking anyone with information to contact Sergeant Aldrich Wayne immediately." Carrigan felt his stomach drop. Marie walked into the kitchen at that exact moment. She looked up at the television, then quietly looked away. Carrigan turned the screen off. His heart was racing. "Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. If you were in Carrigan's place right now, realizing the child in your kitchen is the missing girl everyone is searching for, what would you do first? Tell me your thoughts in the comments." Because Carrigan had no idea that the search for Marie Filion was far bigger than he imagined. Carrigan paced the kitchen floor. Marie sat quietly beside Hargis. Neither child understood what was happening. Carrigan turned the television back on. More updates were coming in. A woman named Arnett McHugh appeared on the screen. She spoke calmly but urgently. "Search teams across the region are looking for 6-year-old Marie Filion. Her family is asking the public for help." Carrigan rubbed his face. His first thought was simple: call the police. But then another thought crept in. What if they thought he kidnapped her? He imagined flashing lights outside, questions, accusations. His chest tightened. Across the table, Hargis whispered to Marie, "Don't worry, my dad helps everyone." Marie nodded slowly. Carrigan picked up the phone again. This time the line connected. "Police department," a voice answered. Carrigan swallowed. "Hi, I think I may have the child you're looking for." The voice changed immediately. "Sir, stay where you are. Sergeant Aldrich Wayne will contact you." Carrigan hung up. Minutes passed. Then a police car drove slowly down the street. Flossie Doyle stepped onto her porch. She noticed the car. Then she noticed Carrigan standing at his window. She walked across the street. "Everything all right?" she asked. Carrigan hesitated. "There's a missing child." Flossie's eyes widened. "Good heavens!" Just then, Marie stepped into the doorway behind him. Flossie gasped softly. "That's her, isn't it?" Carrigan nodded. But something else happened next. Another vehicle appeared at the end of the street. Not a police car, a black SUV. Then another, and another. 3 of them rolled slowly toward Carrigan's driveway. Flossie whispered, "What on earth?" The SUVs stopped in front of the house. Doors opened. Men stepped out wearing dark suits. One of them walked toward the porch with calm, steady steps. His name was Davila Dyer. Carrigan opened the door carefully. Davila studied him. "You're Carrigan Wills?" Carrigan nodded. "Yes." Davila glanced inside. Then he saw Marie. His serious expression softened slightly. "Marie," he said quietly. The little girl looked up. "Mr. Davila." Carrigan blinked. "You know her?" Davila turned back to him. "Yes." Another car arrived behind the SUVs. This one was different, sleek, elegant. The back door opened, and a woman stepped out. Tall, graceful. Her eyes searched the house with desperation. "Marie!" The girl ran toward the door. "Mama!" Carrigan stepped aside. The woman knelt and pulled Marie into her arms. Tears ran down her face. This was Bessie Fillion. Carrigan stood there, stunned, but then Davila spoke again. "Mr. Wills, we need to talk." His tone was serious, heavy. "Before we move forward, imagine this moment. A convoy of black SUVs outside your house, powerful strangers at your door, and a missing child in your living room. If you were Carrigan, what would be going through your mind right now? Share your thoughts below." Because Carrigan had no idea that the woman hugging Marie was one of the most powerful figures in the entire state, and what she said next would change his life forever. Bessie Fillion slowly stood up. She held Marie tightly in her arms. Then she looked at Carrigan. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Finally, her voice came out in a whisper. "You're the man who kept my daughter safe?" Carrigan nodded awkwardly. "She knocked on my door during the storm." Bessie walked closer. Her eyes were full of emotion. "You have no idea how long we've been searching." Davila stepped forward. "Marie wandered away during a large event yesterday. We've had teams searching all night." Bessie knelt again beside her daughter. "Why didn't you tell them where you were, sweetheart?" Marie looked at Carrigan. "He was nice." The room went quiet. Bessie turned back to Carrigan. "You could have called the media or asked for money." Carrigan shook his head quickly. "She was just a kid who needed help." Bessie studied him for a long moment. Then something unexpected happened. She reached out and hugged him. Carrigan froze in shock. "Thank you," she whispered. The powerful woman who commanded an empire of businesses was now crying in his small living room. Marie held Hargis's hand beside them, 2 children smiling quietly. Hope had entered the room. The police arrived shortly after. Sergeant Aldrich Wayne stepped inside and shook Carrigan's hand firmly. "You did the right thing," he said. Flossie Doyle stood by the door watching everything with wide eyes. "I always knew you were a good man," she whispered. Bessie spent another hour talking with Carrigan. She learned about his life, his long shifts, his daughter, his struggles. She listened quietly. Then she asked one simple question. "What do you dream about, Carrigan?" He laughed softly. "Just giving my kid a better life." Bessie nodded slowly. Days later, Carrigan received a phone call. It was Davila. Mrs. Fillion would like to meet again. Carrigan arrived at a large office building downtown. Bessie greeted him warmly. She placed a document on the table. "I want to offer you a job," she said. Carrigan blinked. "A job?" "A securities coordinator for one of my companies. Good salary, stable hours." Carrigan stared at the paper. "Why me?" Bessie smiled gently. "Because the world needs more people like you." For the first time in years, Carrigan felt something new. Hope. Sometimes life changes in the quietest moments. Not with loud celebrations, not with grand speeches, but with a simple knock on the door. Carrigan Wills never expected that helping a lost child would change his life. He was just a tired single dad trying to make it through another week. But kindness has a strange way of traveling farther than we think. One small decision, one open door, one act of compassion, and suddenly the world notices. Carrigan didn't help Marie because of who her mother was. He helped her because she was scared, cold, alone, and sometimes that's all the reason someone needs. Today, Carrigan and Hargis still live in the same town, but life looks very different. The struggle is lighter. The future feels possible. And somewhere out there, a little girl named Marie still remembers the night a stranger opened his door during a storm. Before we finish this story, I want to ask you something. If this story touched you in any way, take a moment and hit that like button. It helps stories like this reach more people. And if you're a single parent watching right now, I would really love to hear from you. Share your story in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from and what challenges you've faced along the way. Your voice matters more than you know. And if you believe kindness still has a place in this world, consider subscribing to this channel. Because here on The Redeemed Single Dad, we share real stories about struggle, strength, and the quiet courage it takes to keep going. Thank you for spending this time with me. And remember, sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change someone's entire life. We'll see you in the next story.